Firebird 2000 YouTube channel. So as you've probably gathered, I blew up the 4.8 engine in the car. This video kind of details how I took the blown motor out and replaced it with a remanufactured Shortblock. It's a combination of slides and video, and I hope you enjoy it. After blowing up the engine, time to yank it out of the car. Here are some pictures of the process of getting started. I've marked things for reassembly later. Blue tape and markers, and cleaning parts and setting them aside. Here's boxes of parts and Ziploc bags and labels that I made to label everything up. Of course, the engine was a little nasty on the inside. Here are the plugs I took out. As you can see, cylinder number 1 was not even firing. It's clean as can be. This process, takes a little time. It's also a little messy, as you can see. Maybe that's just the way I do work. I'm glad I did this because when I had the car lifted, I could see that my front tires were severely bald. Taking off some parts that I don't plan on reinstalling. Taping up the end of the fuel hoses and the oil hoses to keep the mess off the floor. Here's the turbo out of the car. Getting more room in the engine bay as time goes on. You can see the burnt piston on cylinder number 1 in these photos. And number 5 as well. And the engine itself just didn't look very good, so it was on its way out. Done some further tear down, and I have found my first issue, cylinder number 1 and number 5, which is kind of hard to see. They have pistons have some melted places on them. And the piston tops have a few nicks on them where the valves have touched them. So that's a couple things I need to address. Any of you that have removed or installed an engine in a 4th gen F-body knows what a pain in the neck it is. So here I am modifying my winch, making it longer so I can get the engine in and out a little easier. Making ballast weights on the back for cinder blocks, as you can see here in this picture. I don't know that I would recommend you trying this at home. It worked for me. It's probably not an approved method of altering your winch. And I still had to come in from the side, but I was able to go straight down this time. And this piece right here is going to get removed and modified. Here's the start of that. I'm making it removable and also gaining some space for the turbo that I will be relocating. Here's the new bar and the old bar together, so you can see and here's the bar cut out. Plenty of room now. I had to modify my radiator support brackets again. Here's the original hot side pipe, mocked up temporarily so I can modify it. And here is the start of the modification. I kept some of it and replaced other parts of it, as you can see. So I threw the heads and the exhaust manifolds and the water pump back on, just with enough bolts to hold them in place, so I could start working on my hot side piping for my turbo. As you can see, I'm moving it over and up onto the passenger side, and a little bit closer shot here, but yeah, I think this will work a lot better because I can get rid of the scavenge pump, and it should drain on its own with it being higher than the oil pan. One of my favorite things to do is fabricate, and I got a chance to do that here again on the car. Here's the hot side pipe in its new configuration. Here's the turbo mocked up in its new location, up high and mighty. That will allow my oil to drain easier, and I won't have to have a scavenge pump. The wastegate tucks in nice and neat down in there. Here is the truck that delivered my engine to my employer. Here's the fork truck that I used to load it into the back of my pickup truck. And I'm so very thankful that I have such a great place to work that allowed me to take delivery of it there to save myself some money and some time. PMI tape. Here's the engine at home. They actually mounted it upside down on the pallet, which makes sense because it keeps the main caps from getting damaged. It's a remanufactured Shortblock. And here it is on the engine stand, bagged and ready for installation. Wastegate exhaust dump mocked up into place. Here is the catch can mount. I did move it in a little bit because I needed some extra space. The two-step, I remounted it nice and straight. And the front down bar, as you can see from the red marks, that is the old location, and the new location I had to put in to clear the exhaust. The upcoming slideshow is from when I removed the engine from the car. When I put the engine in back in 2008, it was a totally different scenario, as I had to do it outside. I did not have garage space at the time, so I was under somewhat of a time crunch and had to do everything out in my driveway, as you'll see in these photos right here. The engine removal went about as easy as it possibly could. Obviously I had it tore down to the Shortblock, but it came right out in probably 15 minutes time. The winch modifications were perfect, and here I am getting ready to start tearing off parts that I plan on reusing, and a few that I'm going to resell. The torque converter came out on the engine, which that alarmed me a little bit, but all is well. And the oil pan was nasty inside. Oh my god. Here's some metal shavings that drained out into my oil drain pan. Some reassembly going on here. Parts are all cleaned and nice and new. Here's the scrap yard. I got 20 bucks for the old block and a couple other parts from it. More assembly photos. It is a 4.8 LS motor, same as I had in it before. These are truck manifolds. I put them on backwards for the turbo setup. And while I had the engine out, it was time to do a little touch-up paint. I just brush painted this, and of course, you know, I like to really get into my work, as you can see here. And it's just white Rust-Oleum farm implement paint. I painted it with things in the car, which took a little time, but my good friend Dave Merritt showed me that using aluminum foil makes great masking for odd shaped items. It's not perfect, but it's way better than it was. I'm in the process of doing a quick little touch-up of the paint in the engine bay. It looked pretty dingy. This ought to get me by for a little bit. So the driver's side cylinder head had a couple strip bolts that I had to drill out and tap, and of course they're two different sizes. The valve cover bolt on the rear of the driver's side was blown out as well. There's the paint I used to paint the engine bay. Some more engine bay shots. Painting brackets. Ready to drop the engine back in the car, the new engine I should say, and here's a shot of it in the car pretty much. It fought me a little bit, the engine mounts did, but we got it. Well, we've got the new engine block in the car, and the transmission is bolted back up, and I'm ready to start putting things back together. You may know that cylinder heads are very expensive, and I'm trying to keep this a budget build, so I kept the 862 heads. I can just clean them up really well. Molly head gaskets. Painted the valley cover silver because it was pretty ratty looking. Here are the heads back on the motor. The valley cover and the knock sensors installed. I had to replace those. The intake's back on now. Starting to look more like an engine again. Slowly but surely adding more components back to the engine. My box of bagged parts is getting smaller. Really starting to look like an engine again. Here's my wastegate dump pipe. I'm wrapping some of the hot side piping. The turbo is mounted in its new home. I have made a lot of progress. It is almost all back together. The turbo is living up here high and mighty in its new location. And I have to build the cold side piping and the exhaust, since I am actually flipping everything around from how it was before. The new turbo location meant revised hot and cold side turbo piping, so I got to work fabbing that up. Some of it I was able to reuse from the first setup that I built, but probably half of it, or a little more than half, is all new. And it went amazingly well. I was surprised. I've actually flipped it around from the way it looked before. I will try to add a photo in here somewhere of a before and after shot. There you can see some of the reused portions. And that pipe is the exhaust, and it's ready to be trimmed. The exhaust is now going down where the intake used to go. And I spray painted everything with engine black. So that crucial anxiety-producing moment that anyone that has reassembled a engine before has felt right before the first startup. Did I get everything hooked together right? Did I miss something? Is it going to catch fire? Is it even going to start? Um, you know, it's a little tense. It's also exciting at the same time, I suppose, but here we go. My Facebook account reminded me that it was one day shy of 10 years that I had the first 4.8 engine fire up in this car. So that was totally unplanned, but it was kind of cool to see that. These photos are of the completed engine install. It took me a couple of months, which was much quicker than I anticipated. I thought maybe this would be a winter-long project and I would be barely getting done in time for spring when the tracks reopen around here, but here we are. It's ready to fire. So today we're going to pull this outside and let it run for a while, warm up, and burn off all the newness, as we'll call it, and then I can check for any leaks or anything, you know, that I might be able to see outside in daylight a little better than inside here in the garage. So let's get at it. last time. Getting some snow on Monday.